Sports is so much different than any other shopping center business. No one asks you how's your shopping center doing, but everyone you bump into asks you how the Pacers are doing, etc. And what I realized, the difference between this and almost every other business venture, it involves my entire family, from my wife to my kids to my grandkids. All my 8 kids have grown up some different stages of the game, and it brings us together. And it's something like doesn't happen in any other kind of business. So I didn't realize it at the time, but it is one of the most special and rewarding experiences I've ever had.
Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in the state. Well, I'm thrilled to be joined today by Pacer Sports and Entertainment owner Herb Simon, a legend in Indianapolis sports and the real estate development business, and now a member of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. In 1960, Herb and his late brother, Melvin, founded the retail real estate company that evolved into what today is known as Simon Property Group, a national retail real estate powerhouse based in Indianapolis that owns most of the prestigious shopping destinations in the world. Herb is chairman emeritus of Simon Property Group, whose predecessor company has worked with the city for more than a decade to plan the development of Circle Center Mall, which opened in 1995 and was seen as a critical piece in the revitalization of downtown Indianapolis. But before there was Circle Center, Herb and his brother stepped in to rescue another important downtown asset, the Indiana Pacers. The NBA franchise was struggling on and off the court at that time when the Simons bought it in 1983 for $11 million. In doing so, they preempted its sale to a group from Sacramento that would have moved the team out of the city. 41 years later, the Pacers are here, and Herb is the longest tenured owner in the history of the NBA and one of the most respected owners in the league. The franchise and the team have thrived under Simon ownership. Just this year, the Pacers reached the Eastern Conference Finals with a young and exciting team, and the Indiana Fever drafted Caitlin Clark, the WNBA Rookie of the Year, who helped turn around the Fever's fortunes with the return to the playoffs and record-breaking attendance and ratings for the WNBA this year. The future looks bright for both organizations. Here's our conversation. Herb, welcome to Off the Record podcast. It's certainly an honor to have you with us.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, Herb, you just recently were enshrined in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts, just this past weekend. Tell me what that was like.
Incredible experience. I started off being sort of reluctant and surprised and didn't feel worthy. But after dealing with it and working with it and seeing the reaction of my family and other people, I realized that it was a heck of an honor. I got with it, but Mel and Danny had to prod me a little bit, but I got to it.
It's amazing. So as a Hall of Famer, you get to select 3 previous inductees to accompany you. Is that right?
Any amount you want. Some people had 8 or 9, but some people had 1. So I showed the 3 people that represented almost my 40 years around here. I mean, Reggie came in early. Tamika came with the fever early, and Larry sort of had a pivotal role. So, and they all were so gracious to come and support me, and it really made my day.
So you had Reggie Miller, Tamika Catchings, and Larry Bird as they're supporting you. That had to be really special to have those 3 who have meant so much to your organizations.
Made me feel very good and proud of what we've been through and together.
Could you imagine such a thing, being inducted into the Hall of Fame when you were a young guy growing up in the Bronx, that one day you could be in an NBA Hall of Fame? That must have felt like, gosh, how is this happening? But was that something that even as a young man in the Bronx would think of?
It's going to be a short answer. No.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. So, of course, you and your brother, Mel, are well known for the incredible success that you had in developing shopping malls and lifestyle centers. How did 2 New Yorkers end up in Indianapolis?
My brother was stationed here at Fort Benjamin Harrison, and he certainly had a lot of time on his hands. So he got involved in various ventures, and one of them was in real estate. And he saw the opportunity, and I had graduated from school and from college back in New York, and he said, come out here, the land of opportunity. And I said, no, for a couple of years. But finally, he convinced me, and it was the best decision I ever made by joining him out here. And shortly after I got here, we started our own office.
As a young man, and you said you graduated from college in New York, was real estate on your mind at all, or was it just something your brother Mel had in mind and you said, well, it sounds like an interesting opportunity and let's get into the real estate business together?
Just like the Pacer thing, it's surprising. It just happened. It was never planned. He had a number of opportunities and he settled on real estate and got me involved in real estate.
No real estate background in the family. If I remember reading, your father was a tailor in New York City. Is that correct?
Correct.
So this was a new venture with no background, but you were learning as you go, I bet.
Yes, it wasn't that difficult. It was hard, but it wasn't difficult.
Fast forward to 1983. You come to Indianapolis and you're in the real estate business. You started a successful real estate firm developing shopping centers. And then it's 1983. And you and your brother recognize that there's a franchise called the Pacers in Indianapolis that's struggling. And what made you say, gosh, this is something that we should invest in or think about investing in the sports business? How did that come about?
It didn't happen the way you just suggested.
Okay.
We were minding our own business, building our business, when the mayor of Indianapolis at the time, Mayor Hudnut, asked to see my brother and I. And they brought Jim Morris, Dave Frick, Ted Boehm. And, of course, Jim Morris, who was a friend of mine, but not, just an acquaintance, was very eloquent as their spokesman. And they told us this sad story. And they asked us if we would buy the team and keep it here. And it was a short conversation, 20 or 30 minutes. And I don't know what happened, but at the end of it, we were the owners of the Pacers. So
is that right?
It just happened almost, it's 41 years ago, 42 years ago. So I don't remember exactly what was said, but I know it was a short conversation. They told us the problems, the issues.
And they were afraid that the franchise could end up leaving to Sacramento.
It was on its way.
I mean, it was on its way. So they were working to try to maintain that franchise and saw you both as an opportunity to be new owners. But you had not been even thinking about the sports business, it sounds like.
Not at all. And you know the end of that story, by the way.
Tell me.
So we were so impressed, Mel and I, that they came to us to save the team and do our job, and they made us feel so special. Sometime after we had purchased a team, we found out the rest of the story. They went to 5 other groups and people and were turned down by all 5 of them before they came to us.
Is that right?
So
I guess
we weren't that special, but it worked out okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that part of the story at all. So it's interesting to hear. So now the longest serving NBA owner in history at 41 years and a Hall of Famer for all your contributions to the game of basketball. Those two statements, that the longest serving and a Hall of Famer, I mean, that is just so special. When you think about that, how does that hit you?
Well, it hasn't sunk in completely, but it's an honor.
Looking back when you got into this business that we were just talking about in 1983, there's just been incredible growth in sports business in general, just in all of sports. Could you and your brother have imagined at all that what could happen to the sports and entertainment industry? And it seems like that the pace of growth has just hastened over the last couple of decades. But did you see that as an opportunity? How did you think about the business as a whole once you became owners?
There was no thinking. We just did it, and without thinking. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart.
Right. Clearly, sports in general has a way of bringing people together, people of different backgrounds, and lifting up a city. I've heard so many people say that when the Pacers are doing well and advancing in the playoffs, the city feels so alive. And I felt that through the years. Did you realize, and was that part of your thinking, your Mel's thinking, that this could be something, could bring the city together, that does have something to do with a community and a community spirit?
Let's in 2 parts. Number one, even though this is nothing that we ever thought of doing, we realized that if Indianapolis lost their only major sports team, especially basketball, where the old saying is, we didn't invent basketball, but we perfected it in Indiana. So I think that struck us as important for the city not to lose that franchise. But that's the only thinking we did, really. But what I did say in my acceptance speech, the sports is so much different than any other shopping center business. No one asks you how's your shopping center doing, but everyone you bump into asks you how the Pacers are doing, et cetera. And what I realized, the difference between this and almost every other business venture, it involves my entire family, from my wife to my kids to my grandkids. All my 8 kids have grown up some different stages of the game, and it brings us together. And it's something like it doesn't happen in any other kind of business. So I didn't realize it at the time, but it is one of the most special and rewarding experiences I've ever had.
There's no doubt that a sports franchise really does have a way of bringing the community together. And I can tell from a family standpoint, you've felt that, and it is a special business. It has something that no other business seems to really have in terms of a community spirit.
In addition to the fan support and the city involvement, like you say, the city gets alive when we're doing well. But this is in addition to all the normal things you would expect. It becomes even more special when you can have your whole family and your children at all stages of their development involved with you, and it makes it very special.
So it's not only when the Pacers are doing well or the Fever are doing well, but then there have been add-on opportunities that have come about, like the NBA All-Star Game this year. And then we have the opportunity to host, I understand, the WNBA All-Star Game next year. So those are kind of bonus opportunities for the city and to bring people from all over the world to Indianapolis, showcase Indianapolis. Just another reason why professional sports can be so invigorating to the city of Indianapolis.
That's right. It's a bonus. We did one of the early, in I think 1984, 85, I think we did in the early stages when there wasn't really a great show. Over the years, it's developed into an incredible 4 or 5 day experience, which we experienced here in Indianapolis.
It's a global experience. Those games are telecast around the world, and it really amplifies what's happening in the city. It's a remarkable opportunity, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's take a quick break. This is Off the Record Podcast.
Get caught up on the state's top business news every business day with the Inside Indiana Business Radio On Demand podcast. Available now at InsideIndianaBusiness.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Off the Record Podcast. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, and I'm talking with Herb Simon, owner and chairman of Pacers Sports and Entertainment. So I want to take you to 1987. You probably remember 1987, the Pacers had the 11th pick and chose the guy that was representing you at the Naismith Hall of Fame ceremony, chose Reggie Miller out of UCLA, but there was a fan favorite that year by the name of Steve Alford, who was fresh off an NCAA championship at IU that the Pacers passed on. And obviously it worked out incredibly well for the Indiana Pacers and for Indiana. Was that a tough decision for the franchise?
You know how much respect I have for Donnie Walsh, but that was one of the bravest things he's ever done. Because at that time, we had filled up Market Square Arena with 15,000 fans, and all were expecting us to pick the local favorite. And Donnie was a basketball guy, and he knew what was best for the Pacers, and the chorus of boos that accompanied his selection still reverberates to today.
I can only imagine.
It was just a brave act on his part. He knew it was controversial, but it was the right decision, obviously.
I didn't realize you had 15,000 fans there watching the draft. Oh my gosh, that must have been. Donnie Walsh was clearly probably not in the stadium there.
Oh, he was.
He was there.
He almost had to run out of the stadium, but he got up on the stage. We had a stage. He got up on the stage and announced it, and then boos kept coming and coming and coming.
Oh my gosh! Well, I bet those same fans were cheering on when Reggie was leading the team to the Eastern Conference Finals and beyond. So I mentioned 41 years as an owner, the longest standing owner in the NBA. As you think about really special moments that stand out, maybe a couple that stand out as an owner of the Pacers and the Fever, are there a couple that for you really stand out as being just uniquely special?
We just mentioned one that was sort of special. I still remember it vividly, and some of the exploits of Reggie still reverberate. Beating the Knicks a couple of times to get into the next round was very exciting. But just generally, it's like most businesses, there's ups and there's downs, but you want to remember the ups and not so much the downs.
One of those you kind of are referencing, I think, and I can remember clearly watching on TV, there was a night at Madison Square Garden in 1995 when Reggie scored 8 unanswered points in 8.9 seconds. I think I watched on ESPN 30 on 30 on this. It's legendary. And of course, Spike Lee is sitting courtside. I'm assuming you might have been at that game when that occurred in 1995, but in my mind is an incredibly special moment.
I don't remember. I've seen it repeat so many times. I don't know whether I saw it visually but I was there either watching it or at the place.
Those Knicks series
and
were legendary.
He did push off Starks. He pushed them. If you remember the play,
Yeah.
a little pushing off.
Yeah. As a New Yorker, of course, you grew up in New York. Is that extra special to go back to some of those games at Madison Square Garden?
I just think that sometimes I forgot about my early days of being a Knicks fan, and the Knicks fans are now pretty aggressive. So when you beat an aggressive fan base, it is rewarding.
Feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Feels pretty good. Those Knicks series, they used to call it the Knicks versus the Hicks or Hicks versus the Knicks. And did you find any comedy in that, or I don't even know how that started? Do you know how that started?
It was fine. It was a good phrase.
So the Pacers advanced to the NBA Finals in 2000 for the first time and only time in franchise history in the NBA Finals, and faced the LA Lakers, led by, of course, Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, 2 Hall of Famers. I remember it. I remember that what an incredible time for the city that was. What was that like to see the Pacers in the NBA championship, especially against a team like the Lakers and Kobe and Shaq?
Every time I see Larry, we talk about that jump ball that we missed. We had Rick Smits jumping the ball. We thought we definitely, if we got that and won that game, we thought we could have won the whole thing, and we keep regretting the result of that jump ball.
Amazing. If I recall, LA won that series 4-2. Is that right? We won a couple games. Yeah.
And if we won that, obviously anything could have happened this 7th game, but
that was
we never got to see that.
So you've always been Indianapolis focused. I know, wanting the city and the state to prosper and progress. So it made all the sense in the world that you drafted another guy that you talked about earlier to join the organization in 2007, and that was Jim Morris, the late Jim Morris, who I know was so special to our city and state and to the world, really. Can you talk a minute about what Jim meant to you and to your organization through the years?
He was so special. I mean, he was the most kind person I ever met in my life. You know how I met him the first time? Sometime in the 70s, the Jewish Community Center asked me to go over to the Lilly endowment. They were requesting a $50,000 grant. And I guess they had never given a grant to that organization before, and they were a little nervous. And I was a new guy in town. They sent me over. I don't know why. And I walked in there not knowing what to expect. And I met the kindest, most gentle, most decent person I ever met. He became my friend for over 50 years. And before I even finished asking, he gave me the 50. I walked out thinking, why didn't I ask him for 100?
Right.
And when I tell that story to Jim, may he rest in peace, every time I tell that story, he said, I would have given it to you.
Wow. Such a special guy to so many, and meant so much to our city and state. He was a guy who believed so much that it was so important to have a strong downtown. It was really a focus of his, that if you don't have a strong downtown, then you don't have much, because everything kind of emanates from that, including the suburbs and the greater central Indiana. He emphasized that constantly. And so it makes complete sense that because you told me earlier that he was one of the guys that was in that room when the city approached you to buy the Pacers.
He was a spokesman. He was eloquent. And he was convincing. And that's how he was about always asking for other people, not for himself, for charities, for good causes, for the betterment of the city. I mean, he was just we miss him very much.
I know so many of us do. Yeah. Well, special that you got to spend so much time with him, and together you have done such important things for our city and state. So this year has been quite an incredible whirlwind year. I just name some of the things that have happened just in this year. Pacers make the Eastern Conference Finals. The NBA All-Star Game is hosted here in Indianapolis. Mel Raines is promoted to CEO and now one of the few women to lead an NBA franchise after longtime executive Rick Fuson retired. You make the Hall of Fame. And the Fever had the number one pick for the second year in a row, had the number one pick, and draft rookie sensation Caitlin Clark, who wins Rookie of the Year. And the Fever go back to the playoffs. I mean, that, if you just think about what an incredible year for your organizations, for the city, for yourself, the recognition for 41 years as a league owner. I mean, this has been a whirlwind year for you. How are you feeling about all of this happening in the span of less than a year?
As I also said, I learned something this year. It's better to have two exciting teams to watch than only one.
Right.
And this year we had both things happen.
Yeah, the future seems incredibly bright for both. You got great athletes on all the teams, and it seems like great character people on all the teams. You got great people leading both organizations. So things are going so well, it feels.
We feel fortunate, yes.
I'm curious to get your reaction to what the impact has been of having Caitlin Clark join the Fever. Obviously, it feels like a worldwide phenomena. Everywhere I go, I travel a lot around the country, and people are talking about going to a Fever game. So clearly, I'm astonished sometimes. I'm like living out and far away from Indiana, and they're saying, I made it to Indianapolis and attended a Fever game. What has this been like in general after the Caitlin Clark pick and then the year?
So it's just remarkable, the attention we're getting, the new rebirth almost of the whole league. Everyone is talking about it. Attendance is up all over the league. We've broken all our attendance records this year. All our merchandise records. I mean, it's a phenomenon. We're lucky to be part of it.
Is the entire Pacer Sports Entertainment, is the team a little tired from all the things that I just mentioned, happening this year? They probably need a little break at some point.
Well, it's all because Mel just took over, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're all happy about it. Rick has been responsible for it. Mel, the whole team has worked together very well.
So you've been investing around Gainbridge with the plaza, the new Commission Row entertainment complex. I know there's some other exciting plans on the drawing board that include a hotel and entertainment venue at the corner of Georgia and Pennsylvania. Tell us a little bit about investing in and around Gainbridge Fieldhouse and your interest on that front.
Trying to make it a real deal, but there's another part to it other than being a successful deal. It's really a way to give back a little bit. And the more excitement we can create downtown, it's adjoining the arena. There'll be a bridge to it, so it's synergistic. But if they redo the mall downtown, I think downtown is going to have some great days ahead of it. And we want to just be part of it.
It's fantastic. So that's kind of leads into what I was going to ask you next, which is when you think about the future of Indianapolis, our city, what kind of ideas or kind of thoughts come to mind? I mean, do you see the city continue to advance and grow and new and different ways? What comes to mind when you think about the future?
Well, it's not just all being altruistic. A lot of downtowns are suffering, but we have so many things going for us downtown. I mean, we have all the sports ventures downtown. We have the zoo downtown. We have White River Park. We have the state capitol. I go on. And we have a special downtown. I remember when the Super Bowl came here, everyone was talking about how easy it is to get around downtown, even in the winter. So we have a special situation. Indiana's been special to me and my family, and it's a special place. And I get excited every time I think about it.
You mentioned, of course, we talked in the intro a little bit about 1995, the development of Circle Center. Now it's going to be redeveloped again, as you just mentioned, by a company called Hendricks. Have you seen any of the plans of what that's going to look like and kind of that whole revitalization?
Yeah, early on, there were a bunch of people sending plans, and we did see the plan, but it's probably changed 100 times by now. So I think it'll be great. We encourage it. We will support it.
It looks very exciting. I got a preview. We had a real estate event, and one of the guys from Hendricks went through it, and it just looks unbelievable. Yeah, it really looks wonderful. So I think that
I like to see the current plan, but I haven't.
It looks great. Well, it's hard to believe, but you're about to turn 90 years old, right? And I want to understand, like, what is the secret? Because you look great. You're incredibly active in terms of all that you're doing in the city. I just mentioned some of the new real estate projects. What's your secret for longevity and health? Because you're a picture of health.
I feel pretty fortunate and lucky to still be active. And that being active keeps you active. And I still get as excited about doing things as I've ever been. And we got good people to work with. And it's a fun to be here, and it's a fun to do good things.
So one of the secrets is don't retire. Stay active.
Don't retire.
Yeah. I've had that advice, including my father, who's still working as a dentist in South Bend at 82 and has no plans to retire.
I love it.
On Off the Record podcast, we always ask some questions called a speed round, just to ask you some same questions we ask all of our folks who are on the podcast. So I'll ask you those questions. What's your favorite movie?
I thought about it, but I don't have one.
How about favorite place to vacation?
A friend of mine has a beautiful place in Ithaca, Greece, and we yearly have a retreat there for a week or so, and that's turned out lately to be one of my favorite places to be.
What's the first thing you do in the morning?
Brush my teeth.
Right. Do you have a favorite book or one that you recently read?
Literature and books are my favorite thing, and I'm always reading more than one book at a time, but I like to think the most important thing is, how did I get started? When I was a teenager, I read Look Homeward Angel by Thomas Wolfe. And for some reason, that book turned me on to reading, and I've not stopped reading since then.
Is there a food that you can't live without? Favorite food?
Probably dark chocolate.
The best advice that you ever received?
From my brother Mel. Come out here, it's a land of opportunity. And I felt stupid by not listening to him for 2 or 3 years, but when I finally made that decision, I felt that was the best advice I ever got.
That's awesome, and a great way to close. Herb, want to thank you so much for joining me on the Indiana 250 podcast. I want to thank you for all you've done for our city, for our state, and wish you continued good fortune with everything that you're involved with. Thank you so much.
And thank you.
Thanks to Herb Simon, owner and chairman of Pacer Sports and Entertainment, for our conversation today. To learn more about other leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list, go to indiana250.com and look for a Page 2 feature each week in IBJ. We'll be back with the new Indiana 250 Off the Record conversation soon.